Hello and welcome to this Transcribe Right tutorial. This is the Sonia half of Claire and Sonia. As part of running your own business, it's important that you keep records to hand to your accountant at financial year end, as well as being able to keep track of your earnings and expenditures. There are several options you can use, and we will be looking at 3 of the options in course module 2. You can buy a pre-printed ledger from your local office supplies outlet and write all of your income and expenses in it. You can use an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document with formulas. I have prepared short tutorials showing how to use each of these options, and in this current tutorial I will show you one way you can use a pre-printed ledger book. A simple ledger book like this one is easily obtainable from a corner newsagent, office stationery store if you are in Australia or the UK, or from Office Depot or similar if you live in the US. They consist of lined columns across 2 pages, with space at the top of the page to name the columns by category. You will see that I'm going to set this ledger up for my little business for the period July 2017 to June 2018. Interestingly, in Australia our tax year runs 1st of July through to 30th of June, while in the US the tax year runs 1st of January through to the 31st of December. And in the UK, the tax year runs from the 6th of April through to the 5th of April. Back to our simple paper ledger. To begin filling it out, you will need to have some idea of how you want to label the columns. Usually the first 3 columns will be date, description, and monies received. For the purposes of this tutorial, I'm going to label my columns office equipment, stationery, subscriptions, equipment repairs, phone and internet, software, and I will label the last column sundries, leaving space before the sundries column for any other categories that might come up during the tax year. The purpose of the sundries column is to have a place that I can record purchases that I'm not quite sure whether they are claimable on my return or not. For example, if I do a trip somewhere to visit a friend and take the opportunity to meet with a client during that trip, maybe I can claim part of the airfare and accommodation, or the meal I took the client out for. But I'm not sure if I can do this, so I will put those amounts in the sundries column, and my accountant will be able to deal with them appropriately when the time comes to prepare my tax return. Like everything else, don't forget to keep all of the receipts associated with items you put in the sundries column. Once I have the columns labelled, I can start filling in the ledger from the invoices and receipts I have. Here is an example of what your entries might look like. I probably should have labelled clearly that these entries are for July 2017, but you can see from the date column the day, month and year dates for each entry. Note the Australian format for date. In the US, I would of course write the date entries out as month, day and year. In the description column, you can see that I've put a brief note of what the purchase was, in the case of an expenditure, or the client's name in the case of monies received. Once I've got all the entries in for July, I want to total up the columns. I've decided I'll use a different coloured pen to rule in a line that indicates the end of entries for July. And here I have totalled up each column. At the end of August, I will repeat this process with the invoices and receipts from August. There are different ways you can fill out your ledger book. In this next example, I've chosen to use coloured pens to make the monies received amounts stand out clearly. You will see that because I have clearly labelled August, I've chosen to just put the day in the date column. One thing with monies received, as the name states, the figures recorded here are the actual payments received from my client in that month, and not the amounts I have billed to clients. You can't count your chickens before they hatch, and you can't count money in the bank that you don't have. So it's important to remember that. Back to this ledger example. Now we have 2 months worth of figures in the ledger, it's time to start a running total. So at the end of each month I will total that month, and then I will create a year-to-date total. In this example, you can see I have my July total and my August total, and then my year-to-date total is the July and August totals added together. At the end of September, I will add September's totals to the year-to-date total and create a new year-to-date total, and so on at the end of each month. When tax time rolls around, I will be able to provide my accountant with this paper ledger to use to prepare my taxes. If there are any figures in the sundries column, I will also provide my accountant with the receipts or relevant paperwork so my accountant has all the information they need to figure out whether it can be included in my accounts or not. I will also have paper records being all the invoices and receipts for every figure shown in the ledger. It's very important that your paper ledger is backed up by invoices and receipts. In Australia, we are required to keep these records for 7 years in case of audit. Please check the tax laws in whatever area you live in. So there we have it. That's how to use a ledger book. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.